Hi. So for today's lesson, wanted to go into some exam analysis and which is a little higher level portion of looking into your course and figuring out um, what's needed for your students. So we'll look at some exam analysis, filling in the gaps for student mastery. So basically, what we're going to do, 3 different steps here, and I'm going to provide you with this presentation. And then on video, I'm going to do things live, and I'm also going to give you the PowerPoint, and that you'll be able to work through both on your own time. At the same time, then of course you can always come to me, and I'm happy to help you. So the 3 steps we're going to be looking at is how to look at the exam results. We're going to go through the step-by-steps of how you're going to get to the results and the pieces you're going to look at. And we're going to show you how to analyze your student results. We're going to talk about the ideas to help shrink the gaps in those results. Okay, so I have a presentation here, and if we go through the presentation, it's going to go through the steps. Right, step 1, step 1 and 2 on here, step 3 and 4, as we keep going, 3, 4, 5, and I had them screenshot. So we're going to go, and I'm just going to do it live to show you from here. So of course this is my educator, and this is my government class. And so from here, we're going to go to tools, and we're going to choose our exams. And once we're into the exams, so you'll be able to see. And so exams mean all my quizzes, and then all my module exams, and then the final exams. So for this example, my government class, these are the items you would see, and then I should be able to look at a little analysis of this. So for the example I used in the PowerPoint, I'm going to stay consistent. We're going to look at the Module 2 exam. So the students would have done a Module 2 DBA, then they would have done the exam. Of course, they've done all the work in there. So here we're going to go to the action button, and we're going to go to the gradebook. Once the gradebook is opened, you're going to see students' names, scores, and then time spent. So time spent is a valuable tool. These are, right, these can be sorted by the top here, right, last name, right. We can look at our scores, lowest score here, right, to the scores not accessed, to my highest score. Notice there's no hundreds here. This has been very helpful at times because you can look at the time spent. So 3 hours and 54 minutes, all the way down to students that haven't been in there yet, but in 18 minutes was able to pull 74, in 22 minutes and 88. So different statistics, especially if we're looking at one student, this is a nice place to go to and look. And I scroll all the way to the bottom, we'll also see here. So out of the number of students, I have 48 submissions, and the standard deviation, the minimum was a 46, the high I've got is a 97, right? So range in the mode and the mean. So students basically are averaging about an 84 on this. So the question is, what can I do to help get it higher, right? How can I have it? So one thing to understand is when I'm looking at this, these are only the students who are currently in my class. So one of the limitations are, so we're looking at Module 2, which is fine. But if I want to go look at final exam data, this is part of the reason I'm holding this to a December presentation, is as students finish your course and you start to issue grades, once they're outside of your gradebook, they're no longer in Educator, their data is no longer there either. So it's kind of important to take some updates and have a look, especially as you get the end of the semester, maybe lots of kids take the exam. It's a much better time to be able to look at that exam data. So here are a couple items. We can look individually, but right now I'm kind of looking as a group of what I should be looking at. So this little button here on the bottom is Advanced Question Statistics. I'm going to click on that. We're going to open up the Module 2 exam. So now this is the whole pool of every question available for Module 2. Granted, every student isn't going to be given every question, right? Because it's the pool of questions. This is not sortable, right? You can see here that 17 of these were given, 14 got it correct, 3 did not get it correct. That's the no credit. All right. I'm just going to go to the very bottom. These are all the questions, but we're going to go all the way to the bottom here. And you can see that I got two little buttons here, export to CSV or the XLS. So this is going to open up, when I click here, it's going to open up in Excel. So let's look at our example. It's going to open up here. Let's open the file. And here's my data. And so this is the Module 2 data. I'm waiting for it to be approved and show me. We're going to pull this open a little bit and adjust. If I click here, I can actually see the question. So this is question 1 that we just looked at, right? The 17, 14 correct, 3 didn't. And these are the questions. And I have to enable editing. Okay, so now it'll be a little bit better here. Okay, so I like to go into here and under my data, and I'm going to filter, and these are all my directions, so that you can then see. So now I need to pare down. Now using Excel, I can pare down and start to figure out, right, there are 90 questions. The pool has about 90 questions in here. What am I worried about? So I'm normally worried, these two columns, no credit or no credit percentage, right? This is the percent of students missing the question, right? So about 82% are getting this question correct, and about 17, almost 18% are not. So if I sort it, it's never clean. So here's my 100% though, right? These are definitely 100%. So I'm not really worrying about these questions. So I like to go in here, right click, delete. So those aren't really what I'm worrying about. And you'll notice as I scroll down here, I got up to 37%, and then we're all over the place. I'm at 445. So if you click on these little things here, it's a number stored as text, convert to number. I'm sure there's an easier way that it would actually do this so that it's a true number. I'm just not that smart. But I can then see here, and I work in color a lot. So 45, 53% of kids missing this. That's not so hot. I can also sort the no credit by the number, and that's pretty on track here, right? So 1 missing it, 2 missing it. That's really not that big a deal. Not a very high percentage even at 3. Now we're starting to get somewhere after the 3. Once we even get into 4, right? So I'm just going to start deleting. So we can then start to look, and here I have about 26 questions I could really worry about. But right, these are all in the 30s and plus range. That's these two in the 30 range. So now I have to decide what I want to look at, what I'm worrying about. So again, let's pick, this one's the 53. So let's look at it. It's question 19 here. There we go. So you can see as you look at the question, it comes from 202 in the course, Module 2 exam. So it's going to be from the different pieces. This is the standard. And this is the question. Notice it kind of runs. Oh, I hate it when I forget to do it. Right, so I hit enter and it kind of opened up for me here. I can double click and it'll open up the questions for me there too. You can enlarge them. You can choose what you feel needs to be focused on, right? So here, as I said, this was 5. Look at that one. That's an 80%. So that would be one I'd get rid of too. I can do this for quite a while. So let's just move on though. So here's this 53% question, and I have to figure out. So here I can start to figure out that students are missing this, and then what I'm going to do to help get the students back on track in there. So as I do, these are all the steps, right? I told you we were going to go through. We've already done every one of these steps on this slide. I'm just going to give you this slide, right? And you can see the example here. And what I just talked about here. So my example here was question 60, which was this one here, right? So, which the following is a check of power of the judicial branch, right? And so the answer is the House of Representatives impeaches the justice. And so only only about 55% are getting this one correct and 45% are missing it. So what I can do though is if I go back in to here, right, this was where I pulled the Excel. I go back to my question. We know that was question 60, and I can get to 60 here. And when I get to question 60, then I can click on the more info, and it'll open up, and you can start to see what everyone answers. So if there becomes a point, to be honest with you, as I looked at this earlier, there's plenty that get it right, and the ones that don't, kind of all over the place. Congress, so the words are President and Senate and Congress. They all begin with the. So here I am with House. House is the correct one. Congress, Senate, Congress, House, Senate, House, President. So they're a little all over the place. So this kind of gives me a frame of reference of what maybe I should be asking in 202 and a DBA. But again, that's not the only route. So let's go back to the presentation part, because now we can see the questions. We can see what might be an issue and where I can then look at it. And this was the analysis there of what the students answered. And if it's one over the other and it's a pretty definitive piece, it makes it very, very simple. So now how are we going to approach this? What's the strategy? The idea is now we have to figure out the reason. So we just looked at that and I just saw what students missed, but is the reason they're missing it? Is it the continuity of how they're working? Is it the content within the course? Is it the process of their working? Because it does have the student name, you can start to see the students, right? So let's look at ways we can go about this. Okay, so the strategies are the normal strategies we all know, hopefully, or have an idea of to shrink those gaps, right? Is it the content? Is it the directions? And then what student impact are you going to have, right? So we're looking at, when you think of your students, what percent of your students take quality notes? What percent of your students complete the assignments to mastery? Who will watch help videos that you're giving to them? Who will take a practice exam? Who to go to live lessons? Who read and use your feedback? How is your feedback? And then, of course, completing DBAs. So there's a different impact to this based on your students. 100% of students go to the DBAs. That's a definite. That's one they're not going to get away from. The rest of this, honestly, is hit or miss. But you can't. You have to throw it at everything. You have to figure out how you can throw it at each piece. So let's talk about the pieces you can use. Okay. So the first thing is everyone should have a help page. Email came out, and here's the tiny. I made this into a tiny URL.com FLVS sites, and it has the Google Doc to all the help sites. So this should be the Flora Virtual page should be linked. If you look at my page, my help page, and we're going to go back to my help page. I've just taken a lot of what they use and a lot of what I make, and I made it into my own Weebly help page, right? And so they have this here, and they have the note guides, templates. They have help videos. They have some enrichment videos for things that are tougher, review videos, study guides. If we go into economics, I actually have a practice test that's actually under a Google form. It grades to them, and it actually notifies me when they take it, along with the exact same items. Right. So these are a lot of the items that we're looking at on that help page, right? So in that note guide, the idea is, what needs to be in that note guide? And some of the courses Florida Virtual gives you that note guide. Some you need to make. Some are Florida Virtual's help. But if 202, if I look back at that question, I go back into that note guide, and it's not covered well enough that they should be able to get it through their notes, then maybe I need to add more. Maybe Cornell Notes isn't enough. You'll see kind of examples here this is part of a presentation I gave years ago where definitions were given here. Ideas are defined, but then there's a little extra step that they had to go through to get through it, right? So in working through templates for written assignments, so this wouldn't have been helpful for 202 because it was a quiz. So whereas if it was another assignment, I should be able to then focus that, does that assignment make sure that they have an understanding of the concept that they're missing on the question? I can tell you for a fact that 12 years of virtual for me, there have been times where I've gone through and I've been grading an assignment based on what I thought it needed, and then once I've done some analysis, I realized, oh, if I just looked a little closer into this question and I made sure they answered that, or can I even, even though I'm not sure that's exactly what it wanted, to encourage that question, or change it on the template, because again, the template I provide sometimes will be a little bit different than what the course offers sometimes, if I really think it's that important. And if 50 or more % of students are missing a question, 40, then there needs to be something, in my opinion, where there needs to be a cleanup, even though they might throw a little bit of a fit, and maybe I don't take the points off knowing that, but I at least point it out to them. So it's a little bit of give and take, right? And you can focus that within the directions, the essay presentation. So that's a good piece to look at. Next within that help side is the videos, right? So the videos being short to the point, and a lot of times they may just explain. I showed you on my government site that I had videos that play, and those videos, the first videos explain the assignment, and then they cover, at least every video normally would cover one content part, whatever they seem to struggle on. And so maybe I would need to add the piece if it seems to be that. Or there's the enrichment videos that really delve a little bit more into it. Most of the enrichment videos aren't mine, or they aren't me. For government, I use a lot of the old, the Bill of Rights and the little cartoons back from the 70s, along with some other more, if they pertain and they're good and students want to learn a little bit more. But this can be another piece where, wow, they're really not understanding these items, like that division of, we looked at one question on federalism a minute ago. We looked at a question on the government limits, and how those all fit together a little bit. So maybe I need another enrichment video. But then again, how many are going to watch that? But at least I'm offering it, right? Next is the practice exam. And the practice exam, so again, here we had a question I know they're missing. Now, I cannot use that question within a practice exam, okay? Practice exams normally, when I worked for Florida Virtual and we would provide these, then I could use the pre-test questions and they can go through, but I couldn't use any question that's on exam or the final exam. But I could look at a question, and again, if I need to hit something about federalism or anti-federalism or what we were looking at, I can ask questions that follow one off that hit those different areas in a different manner. Maybe it's the answer part is, so where the answer is actually the question, and it comes around a different way. So what I also, if you ever go to my page and you go to which you're welcome to look at the economics practice exam, not only my favorite part of the practice exams, and this was not mine, this was a teacher from Flagler who started this. Now the ones that we have now are part Florida Virtual and part mine. I like it's a rationale of why the answer is the answer, because then you can go back, since it's open note. I tell the students that they should be looking at why their notes didn't fulfill that and be able to make sure they can answer. So that's one more piece. Next is those live lessons. So we've gone past the help page and we're now into the live lessons LVC, what we're doing in Zoom. So if you look on page 15 in the handbook, for our full-time students, we do a live lesson. There's no reason you can't be doing it for other. They're scheduled activities, right? Collaborations, DPAs. We want to give them 2 for 1. Maybe they do an assignment within there. You want to then focus on those content pieces, looking at the pace charts, and they're content driven. So again, if students really looks like they're struggling on those 202 piece, maybe that's a lesson that I should be looking at. Now the question is, how many are showing to my 202 lesson? If I go back and look at those other students, and I look at that student list, how many of those students were full-time students, part-time students? Do I need to be offering it more in part-time? Did I not cover it well enough on the full-time status? And then I can start planning ahead. Next is the feedback, right? And so feedback is covered in page 26, but again, we're kind of going back to that template. It's kind of a one and the same. So when I'm looking at the work and what they're turning in, are they understanding the concept? Where does that concept come from in 202? What do I have that I can then come back to that would be that covers it? So these are the items in page 26, right? That, the positive and corrective. We've done some other items, and please reach out about the different grading things that we've done to make it more impactful. But again, your feedback, when you want to make sure that students aren't understanding, when we look at that exam data and you see, wow, they're not getting this concept, what can I do? Where can my feedback make sure that they're going back? Where in the course is that being taught that they definitely have to have in their notes, that they definitely have an understanding, and where can I then point them back to? And point them straight back there. I have feedback that is straight screenshot right from the course and pasted, and then it becomes pasted in under my feedback, and so that the student sees the exact same course, rather than telling them to go back to page 2 of 202 and look at this concept again, because humans are humans, so they may not, they probably won't, and if I give it to them right there, then maybe then a better chance of doing it. The last piece, of course, is DBAs, and this isn't 100% impact because they are required. So when I have a topic that an X number of students are really missing, we're talking like 70 and above, and I will try, and I've done. It's not like I'm just going to cover these 1 or 2 areas. I'm going to make sure that it's definitely within my DBA, right? Because they need to develop. They need to have an understanding. We need to be able to talk about this, and then they should be able to, then I should be able to see the impact pretty quickly off the DBAs from what, especially if so again, we pulled that data and we have this here, and I can save this data as of the date and know that this was, in November. I can look as we go along, and I'll know if I'm starting to make corrections to it and what my numbers are going to be as we move along. And if these questions are starting to, so 55% is more to 40 or comes down to 30, if I'm making the correct turn, especially if I screenshot or saved the students who missed it and who are now getting it right. So it's a little bit of going back to this, probably on a monthly or every 2-month basis, and looking at your data, pull it down and saving it and looking at it. Okay, but 100% credit on 100% impact on those DBAs when it's really a concept that you can see that they're missing. So I hope that's helpful. You pull that information down as the kids finish now, and as they're finishing course, as you issue their grades, but before they've been pulled out. So even if you don't use it yet, you have the information, and it's you want to take a clear day where no kids are calling you, and even though you need that break over winter break, it can start to help you to improve your course for the next semester, and you'd be a better teacher and having a bigger impact with the students. So again, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I thank you.